All right, good morning, friends. Caring Council is preparing a pamphlet on becoming a member of Friends Meeting of Austin. The idea for this pamphlet arose recently from one, hearing from various folks that our membership process is somewhat mysterious and for some somewhat arduous. And two, from the concern raised by the Ad Hoc Resources Committee, pointing out that our membership has dwindled by almost half in the last several years. We began asking ourselves on Caring Council, how can we make the membership process more open? How can we make the steps of the process more easily available to everyone? How can we make the membership in Friends Meeting of Austin essential in the lives of more of our attenders? In preparing for this forum, I found in my Quakerism cache a little pamphlet published by the Southeastern Yearly Meeting called Building the Life of the Meeting by William and Frances Tabor. William and Frances Tabor spent most of their lives teaching and mentoring in Quaker educational communities, including Pendle Hill. In this pamphlet, there's a small section called Strengthening the Membership Process. In it, Fran Tabor says, I'm convinced that for the membership process to function well, it must begin with our having as clear an understanding as we can of who we are as a meeting. We need to know who we are so that people will know what they are joining. And we need to strengthen our inner core, our own spiritual lives and the life of the meeting fellowship. A strong inner core will have a magnetic attraction for persons who are open to our spirituality. When I read that, I realized that, of course, this is the question that gave rise to Julian Kosman Cook's question about FMA's relationship to its resources, and therefore the underlying question of the Ad Hoc Resources Committee for the past 2 years. Who are we? As I read our proposed pamphlet again, I realized that it does not address this question. And first I suggest that we consider in a worship sharing, well, it doesn't have to be worship sharing. We will consider who we are as a meeting. And then we can turn our attention to the pamphlet. I suggest we each read each paragraph separately and share our thoughts about it from the point of view of the person who feels that he or she is ready to become a member. So first, about who we are as a meeting. I just have a few questions to start us off. Do you have a clear understanding of who, what FMA is? How would you express that? What qualities of the meeting drew or draw you to become a member? What qualities of a Quaker meeting that are important to you do you feel are lacking or not as developed as you would like them to be at FMA?
Don't everyone speak at once.
I'll say something. This is Sarah. When I first came in, I think it was 95 or 96, I just felt this amazing acceptance within the first 2 visits. And I felt like people spoke from their hearts. And I hadn't really experienced that anywhere else. There are many other things. I just thought I'd mention those 2. Thanks.
Sarah? Sarah?
Yes.
When you say spoke from their hearts, are you talking about ministry or just interactions with people?
Both.
Both. Okay.
I would like to echo Sarah. She speaks my mind in terms of her experience and what it was that led me. And I've got to say, I never was a joiner I believe that from the age of about 18, I never joined an organization until I asked to be in association with Friends Meeting of Austin. What I thought, and here's the thing, what I thought I was doing, and I think this is one way of describing membership. What I thought I was doing when I asked to be a member was because I already felt part of the community. I'd been around for 5 years, and I already felt completely integrated in. But what I thought I was doing was making a public testimony about my association in a way that I hadn't been willing to do before with any other organization. So that's my thought.
This is
Eating at 80.
this is a topic on which I am prone to ramble on, so I do invite people to shut me off if I get out of hand. Steve says he'll be willing. Well, if you ask individual members of the meeting what is membership to them, you will frequently get a very clear, articulate, detailed sense of what, as we just did from Howard, for example. But if it's going the other direction, the meeting itself, to me, doesn't have a sufficiently clear, shared understanding of what the benefits of membership are. And there's certain values that we clearly hold that maybe, I won't say in conflict, but they don't live easily with each other. One is that I think most friends would agree there's a body of people within the meeting who we call attenders or regular attenders, whom we regard as being fully a part of the meeting community, even though for various personal reasons, they have chosen not to request membership. And as I began to do, oddly enough, database work on the Friends meeting and the yearly meeting, I realized that this is problematic in certain ways. That is, we have this notion that there's a clearly identified body of members of the community, some of whom are attenders and some of whom are members. And the members are easy to identify because we do this whole process. The attenders, on the other hand, somebody comes to meeting, okay, they're a visitor. They may not be a regular attender, but we don't know at what point they transition to being a regular attender because there's no formality associated with it. And then I'll go faster. And then at a certain point, someone asked me, send a message out to the whole meeting, right? And what does the whole meeting mean? Does it mean all the people who I've identified as visitors or attenders or somehow got into the database, or does it mean just the members? It's very ambiguous. And that's the problem I keep stumbling over, is how do we really, if we don't expect people to apply for membership, if we don't have a strong expectation of that, how do we recognize this population of people who are members of the meeting as a community?
Thank you very much, Terry, for that. I was hoping that for this first part that we should concentrate more on the character of the meeting itself, not membership, but what about meeting would lead people to become members? Not the personal stories of why you become, but what about the meeting attracts people? What about a meeting? What is it? What is the ethos or the culture of the meeting, or the spiritual grounding of the meeting that attracts people?
I think we have two things that attract people who stop by and visit. And the first is that we are offering an opportunity to worship regardless of your individual spiritual beliefs and practices. I think that's very attractive to a lot of people. Second, I think that we offer an opportunity for people who want to engage in peace and community improvement. I'm using the wrong word there. Peace and social concerns activities with a spiritual basis. I see those as the two main things that attract the kind of people who do ultimately become regular attenders or members. I think as far as the spiritual life of the meeting, again, I see that as an individual process and attraction, and to some people that's something they want to devote an enormous amount of their life to, but I think for many other people at stages of their life, that is not anywhere near as important.
I would join with that in terms of what attracted me to the meeting is that it was a space where I could explore my own sense of the creative force in the universe and in my life, but with a community of people who share a set of values that I highly support as well and would like to live up to better, and that it's both the welcoming space and the people in it and the testimonies, values, whatever you want to call it, of Quakerism, as I learned more about it, that spoke to me as a place where I could feel at home, I could feel connected, I could feel nurtured and supported, and a place to contribute. But it was a mystery to me up until the first time I walked into the meeting, just exactly what Quakers were, other than they were a lot like Amish. I really didn't have the exposure. It was like a mystery. And so as I learned more about the Quaker traditions and the various forms of it, which can be pretty diverse, it helped me to to feel like this was a place where I could come and be a part of it and still be able to do it without having to sign on to some particular dogma or some particular ritual process other than the silence, which I find very, very rejuvenating and refreshing.
Jim.
So echoing Steve and Tobin, those seem key to me as well, that it's a welcoming space for worship in the manner of friends, open to all regardless of their spiritual background or path. You know, a lot of the testimony that we hear is rooted in Christianity and in traditional Friends doctrine, you could say. But it's not it's not proselytizing in any way, and that absence of the proselytization and the openness to folks sharing how they feel moved to is a powerful combination. So and I'll also share that the silence is most definitely rejuvenating and so forth, but it's also, there's a kind of a discipline towards it, which, you know, has its good sides and its bad sides, but there are often weeks where an hour passes in silence, and that's a powerful experience, even if we're sharing it just through Zoom. So the silence is a real gift, and is worth emphasizing, I think.
Erica?
I think what's being summed up here is the words that came to me is free to be you and me that Marlo Thomas did back in the 70s. That's just, that kind of sums up what's been said by several people, I think.
I might add, a phrase came to me as I was listening more. In the 1970s, I was in California in the Bay Area, and Angeles Arian is an anthropologist and teacher where I was going to school, and she had a phrase called walking the mystical path with practical feet. And it seems like Quakerism was the blend of the Eastern, the Western, the introspective, the active, the external and internal worlds that draw me to it in powerful ways.
So Tobin, is that a quote?
That is, I think, oops, sorry. I think that was, actually, she wrote a book that either had that as a title or was a subtitle, Walking the Mystical Path.
I was wondering if we could borrow it, but maybe not.
Well, I got it from her. She was, of course, Basque, and Howard can probably speak to that tradition as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Basques are some of the most fanatical Roman Catholics in the world. Although the current generation are fanatical atheists. So I don't know. In reaction to that, of course, I did want to maybe just say I wonder if it would be useful to distinguish between what brings people here and then what keeps them here. Because in my case, at least, and I think I've seen this in a bunch of other cases, it's two different things. They're not unrelated. But what drew me to Quakers is what I knew of Quakers, which was I knew about Quaker values and action in the world. Okay, and I had a little bit of a hazy idea of Quaker practice and worship, but not a lot. And I also and so that wasn't the reason I came in. Now, at least for me, I had one of those road to Damascus convincements as soon as I walked in the door, and I realized I wasn't there for the value just per se. I was there for the spiritual experience, and I believe I would not have stayed if I had sensed a lot of insistence on creedal or doctrinal purity. But so I think, and I've seen people do this, come for the values and then, you know, the activist values they see and then stay for the spiritual experience. And I've seen people who, I believe, just stay for the values and don't necessarily get that much into the spiritual experience. I've seen different levels of that. So I think making that distinction might be useful.
Thank you. My clocks are all wrong. Oh, it's later than I thought. Maybe we could put up the work in progress, we're calling it a pamphlet. It's just a sheet of paper, 1 page, or no, 2 pages, I think, because it includes the queries. But if you could leave it, yeah, that's good. And would somebody like to read the first paragraph aloud?
I will.
Okay, great.
Becoming a member of Austin Friends Meeting, a monthly meeting in the Religious Society of Friends, is a very personal decision. It is up to each person to take time to deeply consider his/her own personal relationship with God, the Spirit, the divine, a higher power, or the inner light, and his/her desired relationship with a Spirit-led community. If, after reflection, you feel called to the meeting, to become a member of the Religious Society of Friends at Austin Friends Meeting, members of the meeting will help you through the remainder of the process, which consists of coming to clearness about your and the meeting's readiness for membership. Not all, but many members feel that the process of committing to membership in the meeting results in a greater commitment to one's own spiritual journey and to the activities of the meeting. Was that what you wanted me to read?
Yes, that's what I wanted you to, I'm sorry, Paul, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, great. So in reading through that and thinking about it, are there any comments, changes, deletions, additions you would suggest? Jim?
Can I suggest non-gendered pronouns, and we could substitute there for his, her?
Sure.
I'll also advocate for the last sentence, which sort of in contrast to Howard's experience of membership being a kind of a public commitment or a public pronouncement. For me, it was more of a personal commitment to my own spiritual journey, that, you know, if I didn't, without actually taking the step of becoming a member, the tyranny of the busyness of day-to-day life would just, you know, continue to run things for me.
I'm not sure I understand. So what change would you make?
I am not suggesting a change. I'm just advocating for that last sentence. I like it. And
I'm sorry. I thought you were advocating for a change. Yeah.
I mean, I might suggest you take out the first three words and just begin with the word many.
I think, are you saying, Jim, that this is sort of a matter of your own personal spiritual discipline?
Yes.
I think I mentioned this before, but it seems to leave out the non-theist friends. And since I am
That's
not
a good point.
Since I'm not a non-theist friend, I can't really speak for them.
Could you speak a little more about your concern there, Larry?
Oh, well, it talks about take the time to deeply consider his or her own personal relationship with God, the Spirit, the divine, higher power, the inner light, and his her desired relationship with the Spirit-led community. Well, that's all very well, but I don't think a non-theist friend would identify with that. But I don't know.
You don't think a non-theist friend might still talk about the inner light even if they're non-theist?
They're a curious bunch. Some of them have all sorts of relationships with, well, we're all curious, of course.
Yeah.
But they talk about relationships with demons and spirits and energies and so on. But eschew any relationship with God, Spirit, divine, higher power, or inner light. I mean, I suppose some might, but then some would not.
Jim?
Yeah, I count myself at least part of the time as a non-theist friend. The rest of the time as a agnostic, I guess you'd say. But I do like, Larry, you're pointing out the use of the word and I wonder if this might fix is the wrong word, but help to just change
Jim, I lost you. What did you say? Change?
So the highlighted word "and."
Yeah.
What if we made that an "or" instead? Would that be problematic, or
Wouldn't be the same thing.
it's not the same thing anymore?
No.
Can I,
Of course, or is Hebrew for light.
Great.
I would say, I mean, I identify kind of as the non-theist approach because I don't invest in the sort of theistic side of spirit, but I fully acknowledge there's an active spirit within all of us because we're spirited creatures. But I think that the range of terms is pretty broad. You might, if you're trying to capture everybody, you could perhaps say creative spirit in there somewhere. But I didn't react negatively. I thought it was a pretty good broad picture of those who might be led to become connected to this particular spirit-led community.
Jim?
I might suggest then one other small change, which is to change the phrase "the inner light" to "an inner light." That has less of a doctrinal ring to it, and we can interpret it differently.
Yeah, and Steve, you're making these changes, right? I would take out "or the," put in a comma, and then "and."
I'm sorry. I haven't made any changes. I'm just highlighting areas.
Yeah, okay, so highlight "or" also, and then
Where do you see "or"? Where's "or"?
after power, after higher power,
Oh, okay.
and then put in a comma after power. I don't know how you can, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a PDF. It's not as easy.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll make a note. That's fine.
I guess one thought I had about that concern is I'm guessing that most people who are sort of non-theist or sort of theist in some way, and are interested in joining the Religious Society Friends would probably be comfortable with some sort of religious language, just understanding it in a more metaphorical sense. And if they had a very, very strong aversion to any religious language, it might honestly just be a struggle being in the community, because there probably will be religious language, and if they feel deeply offended by any such terms, then I mean, that might actually be a worthwhile thing to think about, how they relate to that. But if they can take that language as meaning something different to them, that we don't want to exclude that. So I'd be fine with the current range of terms, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you, James. I have a concern that we are a religious organization. And we have roots in Christianity. I know there are some people who feel even that Quakers are not Christian. But I think being too apologetic about that is, I would be uncomfortable with that.
Hello, can I say something? I've been raising my hand, but no one
Oh,
recognized
I'm
me.
sorry. I thought you were, I didn't.
You thought I was waving at someone,
I
right?
thought you were something like that. Sorry, Paul, I'm not reading this.
I don't understand why there's anything wrong with just adding another sentence that says not all of our members are theists, or we don't have any requirement for a belief in the divine. Why is it this one sentence we have to alter? But that's just my opinion.
I guess we'd have to decide it, but not being theist and not having a belief in the divine is not necessarily the same thing. When you get down to it, I think there's at least a preponderance of weight within Quakerism that we believe in the divine. We just don't necessarily believe that it's manifest as an individual, and we have different beliefs about the significance of the Christ. But I wouldn't, to explicitly say we don't require that people have a belief in a divine. I mean, do we expect that they have some belief in something?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think one of the keys here is spirit-led community. We're not just, you know, a social community or a social justice community or a political community or a musical community. We are a spirit-led community. So if you're, you know, if you're uncomfortable with any of those broad phrasings about divinity, I doubt you want to be part of a spirit-led community, and I don't think I want to be part of a non-spirit-led community.
Erica.
Well, one of the main things about Friends is the belief of there is that of the divine or whatever in every single person.
Right.
So that it kind of is that speaks for itself, that there's something special in each person that we want to address, however we name it. There's a children's book by a Jewish rabbi called The Names of God, and there are many, 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 many names applied to this concept of that which is unknowable.
Yes, thank you. I'm thinking that if we devise an opening paragraph that will describe the meeting itself, that concept of that of God in everyone will certainly be part of that. Yeah.
I wonder
you know,
we could,
Go ahead, Tobin.
just if we said, I mean, if we put in front of the spirit, God, the spirit, the creative spirit, meaning whatever this whole universe is exhibiting, the creative generative power of the universe, the creative spirit is a pretty broad, open term. It's a little less focused than the sort of traditional godlike characteristics that might have some people turn some people away, but it seems like to me that that's a nice broad open term that it reflects that of God, that of the creative spirit, and each of us could bring us together.
I think it might be helpful to think about the purpose and audience of this document. In the first place, I don't think an explanation of our membership process is a place to do a complete exposition of Friends' beliefs. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the core thing that we want to express here is that Friends do not require specific belief of its individual attenders or members. At least our Friends meeting does not. But we do have an exploratory process called a clearness committee. And, you know, the purpose of the clearness committee is to see if the person will feel at home in our community and see if the intent of their application for membership proceeds from being moved to become a member of our community, and to see, you know, how much they understand about who we are. And then we have many other pamphlets and forums, to explain these theological concepts and everything. And there's some other discussion going on in other committees about how we could do that better. But I think to try to, if we focus on, this is to explain to people who've been around enough to think that they might want to be a member, this is how it's done.
Thank you, Terry. Jim?
Yeah, I like to echo what Terry had said and suggest that if we did add a sentence here, it should be something to the effect that there is no creed to which members must, I don't know what the right word is, espouse, commit, because as Terry said, there's a process.
Could we switch it to say we welcome all those who have an interest in exploring their faith? Something like that. That sort of, we welcome all interested people to consider membership.
Yeah, I'm thinking that all of this that we're talking about is in the putative first paragraph, which has not been created yet. I'm wondering, I don't like to push people along, but I would like to push us along to the second paragraph, if that would be okay. And if we have other thoughts about the first paragraph, of course, bring them out. But who would like to read the second paragraph?
I'll read it.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
When you feel you are ready, approach a member of the Care and Counsel. Wait a second. My screen suddenly got small. Approach a member of the Care and Counsel Committee to let them know about your desire to become a member. Care and Counsel will suggest that you read the North Pacific Yearly Meeting Faith and Practice, which was adopted with addenda by Friends Meeting of Austin. This can be found on the Friends Meeting of Austin website, www.austinquakers.org, or in hard copy in the Friends Meeting of Austin library. After reading Faith and Practice, write a letter, long or very short, addressed to the clerk of the meeting by snail mail or email. This letter will tell of your readiness in your spiritual journey to become a member of the Religious Society of Friends and Friends Meeting of Austin. You may find the process of thinking about and writing the letter will be the first step in reaching clearness about becoming a member.
I guess something that comes to me for this, and it sort of relates actually to the first paragraph as well. One of the things that I think might be most difficult or confusing for people is this idea of feeling called and feeling ready. Just a difficulty of understanding what that might mean. It's hard to know, do you have to feel like hear a voice that tells you this, or like feel some sort of clap of thunder, like it's very hard to tell what sort of, I mean, I think some sort of like charismatic Christian communities have a very clear understanding of what it's like to feel like suddenly filled with the Spirit and moved to be part of that. That's part of their tradition, that you know what that looks like. It's like, I feel suddenly like the Spirit of Jesus enters me and I'm sort of just totally engulfed in that. And it's not really clear that that's what we're talking about. It's not really clear what we're talking about when you say feel called. Like, do you just think like, this might be a good idea and I feel okay with that? Does that mean I'm called? And I wonder if many people get lost at that point, knowing when they're ready and knowing when they're called.
James, where does it say, are you called?
In the first paragraph, it says, you feel called to become a member of the reflection, you feel called.
Yeah, it says, when you feel that you are ready.
So called is in the first paragraph, and then ready is in the second paragraph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
Thank you. That's a good point.
I wonder if maybe like an example, like maybe have this a second paragraph be like, this is what, you know, somebody might experience when they feel called. What would that actually look like in their life? Like, how would that experience actually go? People just maybe lack a narrative or a script for what a feeling called would be.
Yeah, I think we can just change that language to something less.
Okay, I think we've got the concept a little wrong here. We're inviting them to approach members of what is it, Caring Council or Worship and Ministry. Do they have to be ready? Have they reached, what's ready? Have they reached some level of enlightenment that they think they might want to be a member of the Society of Friends, or they feel called, which means that they have had a literal summons from God. You know, it just seems like we keep building these obstacles. And one obstacle is just handing people a full page document. I would rather have a warm and welcoming invitation to talk it over with these committee members and not make people feel that they have to achieve sainthood in some way before they start knocking at the door to become a member of the Society of Friends.
If we change the phrase, if after reflection you wish to explore becoming a member of the meeting, here's how you do that. In other words, we're not saying you're there and now you have to convince the committee or something, but if you want to explore and learn more about it. So that would be a more open invitation.
I agree with that.
Go further.
I agree with that as well.
Now, the expectation of an exploration is we'll have a clearness committee and it's going to explore certain things. And at the end of it, you know, there's a process and that might bear further explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm dropping into the chat a quote from Thomas Gates that appears on the membership page of the North Pacific Yearly Meeting page on membership, and it's a beautiful quote that could you know, be a header or just something that appears somewhere on this. I like that it says it's a spirit-led journey. I like that it said there isn't a creed to recite or a confession to confess or rituals to undergo. I also like that it comes out of the document that we cite as being the source for our own faith and practice. So there may be ways that we can draw on existing texts that make us not have to reinvent the wheel.
Mm-hmm. Great. I am aware that it is 10:51. We've gotten through 2 paragraphs. That's good. Maybe we can have another forum, or maybe you can just trust us to try to make it the whole rest of it okay, but maybe it should come to a forum again. I don't know. Anyway, why don't we thank you very much, friends. Caring Council is very appreciative. And let's just have a moment of silence while we prepare for worship.